Episode 5. Welcome back to the Literary Entrepreneur Podcast. I am your host, Tyora Moody, and I have been busy. As a matter of fact, if you are looking for the home of these podcasts, I finally got the website up, theliteraryentrepreneur.com, where you will find the podcast. I'm looking to get these podcasts on iTunes very soon. Right now you can find them on the website as well as on SoundCloud.com and Spreaker.com. So I'm really excited about having you to come back to join us, because today I'm going to have, first of all, my very first guest on the Literary Entrepreneur. And I'm also going to bring you that best piece of marketing advice that I received quite a few years ago, that I still use. And to me, it's probably the best piece of advice anyone has ever given me. So in just a few minutes, I will introduce you to our guest today. But I did want to let you know, if you're listening to this podcast, that I do have the first webinar series coming up very soon, and I'm really excited about it because it's going to give me the opportunity to teach and show you some things that I do step by step with some how-to instructions. I already started the registration about a week ago, and it's already filling up pretty fast. So if you're interested in the very first webinar series, which is called Launch Your Book Online. So if you're looking for ways to do things a little differently than you have done with book marketing, I'm going to show you in this very first webinar, which is the first in 4 parts. In this first webinar, you're going to learn the 7 essentials for effective book marketing. That's 7 essential things that you need to have in place to have effective book marketing. I'm really excited about presenting this webinar, hearing lots of good feedback and starting to get questions already about the webinar. So tune in to theliteraryentrepreneur.com, and you can go there to register for this first webinar. It's going to start on April 15th, 2014 at 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. And it's, like I said, it's the first webinar in a series. There's actually going to be 4 parts to the series. And so if you go ahead and register, the registration is still open at the recording of this podcast. And you can listen to me live. And also I'll have a question and answer session afterwards. So if you have any questions about book marketing, I'll try to get in as many responses to your questions as possible. Also, if you register ahead of time, you'll be able to get the free replay as well as any of the downloadable materials that I will be including with this first webinar. So go to theliteraryentrepreneur.com and go ahead and register. I'll look hopefully to see you soon. Okay, so now that you know what's going on with the Literary Entrepreneur, let's go ahead and get into who is our guest today. Of course, now if you're paying attention to the title, you kind of already know her name. Her name is Pam Perry. Pam Perry is a PR coach, and she has worked with anyone from nonprofit organizations to entrepreneurs to many emerging and best-selling authors. So I'm really looking forward to having her on the show today to talk to you about book marketing advice and also about being online. I remember meeting Pam probably late 2005, early 2006. She was the CEO of Ministry Marketing Solutions, and that's kind of when I started to get on social media. And Pam was really one of those ones out there. She has, tens of thousands of followers on her Facebook and Twitter, Pinterest. She even has her own social network, Chocolate Pages Network. So she really understands about book marketing and what she calls publicity 2.0. So I'm really excited to have her on as a guest today. So stay tuned and listen in on the conversation. that I had with PR expert Pam Perry.
Well, thank you so much. I was telling you a little bit earlier, I always share with people one of the best pieces of marketing advice I have ever received came from Pam Perry. And it really literally is something I follow with every book that I write. And that is, think about marketing while you're writing the book. Don't think about it afterwards when you're finished with the book and you kind of just want to go on with the next book. But really think about the process as you're writing the book. And I just want to thank you for that. That's been really a guiding force for me in my career so far.
Oh, good. I'm glad. Something I said stuck. That's a good thing.
Awesome. Well, so for those who don't know you, Pam, could you tell us a little bit about your background in PR?
Sure. I've been doing PR probably for a good little while now, about 20 years. I've dealt with known and unknown authors. Some of the known ones actually are, from TDJ, so I helped promote his novel. I've worked with Dr. Sujay, Dr. Miles Monroe, Matt Siegel. I've done work with Stacey Hawkins Adams, Venus Mason Theus. I've also worked with Carol Mackey as well, helped her with her first website, and Kathy Dollar, and it's been so many. It's kind of like one of my favorites is Dr. Gail Hayes and Dr. Pat Bailey, and I've worked with Kim Brooks and Bishop Hilliard, Bishop Butler. I've worked with Dr. Deanna Murphy. And my very first, Terry McMillan, one of my favorite people that I've worked with, was probably the first really getting started, was Andrea Hall. And working with Andrea Hall was one of the main reasons why I really did that. We did a Waterbrook Press. And when we did Waterbrook Press, then I came into contact with Valerie Burton and Terry McFadden, and so it's been a lot of them as well. Bonnie St. John, didn't want to forget her. George Frazier, Leroy Scott, Pastor Leroy Scott. So a lot of the people, Ken Brown. It's been about 200, so I can't name everybody. Pastor Rudy Rasmus, he did Touch. So in terms of houses, that's probably even better maybe to explain people. I've worked with Harrison House, Moody Publishers, Waterbrook Press, Random House, Zondervan, just about every Christian publishing house. Thomas Nelson, obviously. I've worked with InterVarsity Press. Okay, now I'm not going to name them all. But the houses, when you look at the different houses, there's a lot smaller houses now. A lot of them have combined and that sort of thing, and they've been doubled up, just like as the publishing industry has changed over the last 10 years, because I've been doing this for over 10 years. So it's changed, it's shrunk. It's a whole different look than when I first started in 2000. Harrison House, it's been one, and Harvest House has been another. Michelle McKinney-Hammond, oh my God, I forgot her. So it's been a lot of different shifts with the different authors and the different publishing houses. But even before Ministry Marketing Solutions, that's my company, I started that really working with churches. And then it became a phenomenon for the pastors to get books. And then it was really easy for not just pastors to get books, but for anybody who's a Christian writer to get published, because self-publishing, then the stigma kind of went away. So I guess you said one of the best testimonies I have of someone that I'm saying that is Kim Brooks. Kim Brooks started out with just an idea. She had an idea after the Terry McMillan success that she had. She said, well, what if there was a book that was very similar to what Terry McMillan, okay, just drink some more coffee. Terry McMillan, Waiting to Exhale, was a phenomenal book, but it really wasn't a Christian book, okay? Even though there's 72 prayers in there. So she wrote a book, or had an idea for a book. She's Fine But Easy Saved. And so she self-published the book. She sold about 20,000 copies of that book, and then got a book contract for a two-book deal, and now she's working on another 3-book deal. And they're with major houses. The problem was that when she first got the book, a lot of people didn't hear about it. So we had to build her brand. And a lot of people said, well, I'll write the book and I'll get famous. No, you self-publish it on your own dime, and then you sell the book, then you build the brand, and then the houses will give you a writing contract. So now she's on her 6th book right now. She's working her 6th book.
Okay.
So that's really how it works. And I worked with Kim years ago to build her brand. I was really by social media. So MySpace. She was one of the first clients that I really had them to understand that you've got to really reach your readers directly. So she did MySpace, and she did emails, and she did a little bit of, other things online as well. But one of the main things is that she was connecting directly with her readers to hear what they had to say, and then she would respond. So from there, she wrote some other books and nonfiction books, and really more or less like she's a ministry, so she more or less like really took a ministry online.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm very familiar with Kim Brooks and how she's grown over the years, and I definitely have watched her platform grow. So why do you think so many authors kind of cringe about book marketing and they don't really understand that they need to build a platform and that online is the best way to do that? What's the hold up there? Why do they don't seem to get that?
I remember Stacey Hawkins Adams said it to me. She says a writer basically writes and creates, and they can't do it publicly. They do it privately. And so they take the writing in a very private, solo place. Promotion, marketing, PR, that's very public. That's open. That's a different mindset. You're extroverted. You're really trying to do everything and be everywhere. So it's two different places where you have to come from. And she said to me, she says, I feel like I'm schizophrenic. And it really is. You have to put on two different hats. Not just, we put on different hats for a lot of things, but they are so different. A writer does need to be alone, especially Christian writers. They need to spend a lot of time alone, hearing from God. And so that does not mean that they're going to be out tweeting and Facebooking and doing all this stuff. They have to really hear from God, and they have to write alone. Now, on the other hand, you do have to simultaneously take that hat off, put on a whole other persona, and actually become the person that interacts with people, the extrovert, the people who get the energy from dealing with other people. And there's some people that really get energy from being alone, being creative with their own ideas, and then there's people that really get energy from people, from really interacting with people and seeing tons of people and just really feeding off of that. So it was really two different types of things. So I think if you're a true writer, you hate that. You really, you don't mind doing it, but you really do hate it because it's like, I really get most of my energy from, my ideas and doing my own work and that sort of thing. But what I try to coach people is to understand that you have to have a marketing mindset. And it's a mindset of anything, just like a person would hate to diet, okay, but you like the results of it. So you have to really kind of shift your mindset and say, okay, I'm going to do this thing. What can I do that I enjoy to make the process better for me? And for Stacey, it was different. So for her, she doesn't mind interacting on Facebook, or Kim Brooks doesn't mind interacting on Facebook because, again, it's a little bit of a writing, so they could be creative with it, but then they're also interacting with people. And so they see the buzz going around. So that's how they create their community, by really using what they like, which is really writing the best. But they have to know to get their head out, away from the computer, come out of the room, and go into the world and actually, engage with your community. So I think that's why. It's just two different types of personalities.
Okay. So you did mention Facebook, which I always tell people that's obviously the largest social network, and a lot of authors seem to be comfortable with Facebook. Are there any other social networks do you think authors should try out or consider besides Facebook?
Definitely. I tell every author you need to blog. So if you're not blogging, you're really not serious. So blogging really is the one that is kind of like the leapfrog you into all the other ones, because then you're broadcasting in Twitter and Facebook and Pinterest and Google+. But if you're just there and you don't have a home, you're really wasting your time. So you blog, and you're a writer, so that should be easy for you. So you blog, and I don't care if your blog is a picture, a video, or words, or whatever you want it to be. It could be a poem, it could be a quote, whatever. You're blogging something. So when you have your shares, you're sharing it or broadcasting into Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, Google+. You could broadcast it just about everywhere except for YouTube. YouTube is a social network, but then it's different. If you're comfortable actually doing videos, then I would say you should use video. But if you're not, don't, because it's going to look uncomfortable for other people who are watching you. There's nothing worse than watching someone who's nervous doing a video, and it's like, oh, my God, they're not comfortable, and then makes them not comfortable. So a lot of people say, oh, you should use YouTube, you should use YouTube, you should do video. But if you're not comfortable with video, don't. So if that's not your strength, don't do it unless you get coaching or something like that. But podcasting is good if you like to talk, but most writers really kind of don't. But I'd say the blog is the main thing. Then you can share from there, and then you try to engage your community. A good example of someone who has a great blog, obviously, is Michael Hyatt. He was president and CEO of Thomas Nelson. So he blogs. And he works out into other stuff. But blogging was his main deal. So that's how he really built his platform.
Yeah, Michael Hyatt, I'm definitely a fan of his. I definitely like to check out his blog. And I did notice the other day he was talking to readers and saying how he didn't start his podcast until after he was blogging for at least 8 years. So I was like, he really did concentrate on building a blogging platform, so he already had that audience there for when his podcast came out. So I was like, you really don't think in terms of it does take time to build any particular platform.
Yes,
so for an aspiring writer who may be listening to this, who hasn't, they're still kind of not sure if they want to self-publish or if they want to attempt to get an agent or go the traditional publisher route, how can they start kind of building an audience now?
Well, an agent is basically a salesperson. So I would say anybody who says that they want an agent works on commission. And if you don't have anything that's sellable, they are really not going to try to push you because they make their money by commission. So they want the hot properties. They want people who are already have brand recognition. So if someone says, oh, I just need an agent, and the agent will sell me, well, the agent will starve to death because, first of all, no one's going to know you. It doesn't matter about your book. It matters about your brand at this point because they're not going to read your book if they don't know you. They get manuscripts by the millions. There's so many that, I used to work in a publishing house, Walkworthy Press, and, there were just so many manuscripts that came that never got opened. It's really sad. But anyway, so how should they start? They start with an email list. People who start with your blog and then build an email list. Build your email list up to at least 10,000, and you would say, I've got some people that actually are interested in what I have to say. And from there, you can socialize it into whatever, but people will respond and buy some email. It doesn't matter how much social media people you have. I have 20,000 people on following on Twitter. That's all. It grows all the time. But I have 35,000 on email, so that makes a big of a difference because they're reading their email. They may not necessarily read my tweet.
That's true. Okay, so you definitely said blog and definitely consider building your list. Even if you're not yet published yet, definitely you want to work on developing those loyal readers ahead of time. Okay? Well, awesome. I just have one final question for you, and this kind of came up for me recently. I have written 4 fiction books, and then I decided to write a nonfiction book. And I noticed there is a couple of differences in how you market fiction and how you market nonfiction. Would you agree? Is there some differences, or do you think they're kind of similar? It's the way I was going about it.
No, it's definitely different. Obviously, when you have a nonfiction book, you really are talking about the topic, and you can engage people who may not even have read the book, right? Because you can talk about the topic. Mm-hmm. The fiction book, if they haven't read the book, it's pretty hard for them to engage in a conversation with you because they don't know what you're talking about. You're talking about people they haven't met yet. So it's a whole other mindset. I like nonfiction best, personally I do, because it's really more or less like it comes out of research and it comes, someone who has a platform of speaking, motivation, inspiration. I like nonfiction better. But for someone who is a fiction author, in order to market, they really have to become more of I don't want to say wacky, but more of a celebrity, so to speak, than, say, a nonfiction author. So they really have to have something that's really wacky or something that really brands them because for someone to take notice. I'll give you an example of, there's a girl, Liz Higgs Curtis. She wrote a lot of fiction books. And you can see her brand all the time, and she's pretty zany. She has the same colors. It's a different type of market. Even though she talks a little bit about the topics, but before they even know her topics, they know her, Liz Higgs Curtis. Michelle McKinney-Hammond. She wrote a lot of nonfiction books, but at this point when she started writing fiction, you already knew her brand. So it is a little bit different. When you're writing fiction, you have to be known first and foremost as a writer. Mm-hmm. I can't stress that enough. It's a different type of writing. So you may even, Stacey Hawkins Adams made a really good transition from being a reporter to actual novels because she already has people's respect as a writer. So if you write articles or you're interviewing, you have to have people. You can't just come out of nowhere. You can, but it's better if you have a writing history and people know you as a writer for them to really then spend time reading your novel. Your 300 or 400 page novel. So I would say a little bit different when you're marketing your brand as a nonfiction author. You don't have to do that. You can really just be a speaker and just say, hey, I got a book. But if you are all of a sudden say, I'm going to write a book, I'm going to write a novel, people are like, when did you learn how to write? Because it's a different type of process. One is easier than the other.
Yeah, I definitely agree.
Nonfiction is easier. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
you have to deal with character development and dialogue and, it's a lot of stuff. Yeah.
Well, awesome. Well, and that definitely goes back to what you were talking earlier about trying to, start your platform off with a blog. So people who you meet on social media will kind of see that you're a writer. And most of that's going to be usually nonfiction when you're doing blog posting, unless you're doing something like flash fiction or doing some short stories or things like that for your blog. So I can definitely see, or I hope people who are listening to this can see how blogging can definitely help you build your platform, whether you're a fiction or a nonfiction writer. Well, Pam, I am really so happy that you're able to join me on the Literary Entrepreneur Podcast today. You're my first guest, and I really, like I said earlier, I appreciate your advice. I appreciate the things that you do and help other authors with online. She's definitely one of those women that I admire. And I just
thank you
so much. Thank you so much for being on the podcast today.
All right. Well, thank you for having me. This has been really good. And people can find out more information. They can go to PamPerryPR.com and they could read some of my blogs.
I'm so delighted that Pam Perry was able to take time out of her busy schedule to join us on the podcast today, and I hope you received some good advice that you can use today. Once again, if you want to hear this episode again, or if you want to catch previous or future episodes, you can go to theliteraryentrepreneur.com/podcast to hear or download those shows. I want to just close out by saying to you, you're more than an author. You are a literary entrepreneur, writing and marketing books is a business.